Our marriage and love life would have been ruined had we not done these things before we got married. And the list isn't too long, but it certainly is substantial. You might be surprised to hear what we've been through. Physical boundaries and saving ourselves for marriage. And of course, this is the topic that everyone asks about.
We live in a world where giving yourself away to someone sexually is just very normal.
Yeah.
And so as Christians, we live counterculturally.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy. There are going to be temptations. So there are some safeguards that you can instill in your dating life, in your boundaries.
Totally.
And so that's what we did.
And we weren't afraid to talk about it. In fact, I think it was during some of our first conversations, we talked about our expectations for dating. We talked about our heart for purity and boundaries that we would set. And we talked about things like, hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to kiss you while we date. I don't think I'm going to be able to be late at night with you. And you actually handled that very well. Neither one of us had to convince each other. It was our hearts were already united in that form.
And the Bible says a house divided against itself cannot stand. So you want to make sure you're united before you get into a household together.
And now being married, we experience a purity and love in intimacy that is so beyond what the earth could offer, in the form of, we know we are so committed to one another. I know that you love me enough that you waited for me, and you know that I waited for you. And there's no feeling like that. There's no feeling as valuable as that. And if you have made mistakes before, if you have given yourselves away to other people, we're not condemning you. We're not shaming you. There's grace for you. There's the blood of Christ that washes you. We're encouraging you to just get yourself back up again.
Yeah, you can save yourself for marriage today.
Now, if you feel like you're working so hard to convince the other person, that is the definition of what you call unequally yoked. You cannot make them who you want them to be. That's not your job, not your place.
They're not your project.
It's also just the rationality of the person that you want to run in life with, that they value themselves enough to not be a vending machine, to not give themselves away to someone who has not paid the price for their life. And it actually tells you that you can get all the benefits of marriage without any of the cost. Studies have been released all over the place that those who have been living together before they were married are at least 20 to 30% more likely to get divorced.
No person in their right mind thinks, I want my marriage to fail. So what we should be doing is everything in order for our future marriage to succeed.
Another really important thing we talked about before we got married that did save our marriage was...
We talked about all the controversial topics.
We got into it.
Politics, our values, our morals. We talked about finances, children...
That's a great
all those
point.
things.
You're not just marrying the love of your life. You're not just marrying the person you want to sleep with. You're not just marrying the person you want to smile and have giggles with. You're marrying the mother of your children.
And the father of your children.
This is a big stinking deal. God's image of family is not that the father would rule over the household or dominate over the household, but fathers are called to lead. Fathers are called to serve, right? And they serve in such a manner that actually the wife wants to submit to that servanthood. Yeah. The wife trusts the husband enough to submit to him. And that's the biblical model of what a family looks like. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about that. We talked about how the father is the leader of the household, how the father also, statistically, the family is 95% more likely to have faith if the father has faith. But if the mother or just a sibling has faith, the sibling is only roughly 5 to 10% more likely.
Not nearly as influential. So
completely different.
God created families with a specific order of the father being the head of the household and the mother or the wife being there's two coaches. There's the head coach and then there's the other coach.
The assistant coach.
The assistant coach. Yes. Thank you.
But the assistant coach carries the same authority as the head coach. Yeah. But they simply are submitting to the headship. But it's a beautiful thing. It's Christ and the church.
These are important things to talk about. And you might think it's controversial. And maybe you're like, no, I don't want to have drama. I don't want to have politics. Disagreement. But you kind of have to, because at the end of the day, it's going to be so hard to be married to someone that doesn't see eye to eye with you on those things.
We talked about who we voted for. We talked about certain topics. And we found ourselves agreeing on almost everything. There's a couple things that you might have known more about me and just needed to tell me about it. And then I'll be like, oh, wow, I'm interested by that. Tell me more about that. A certain... I can't mention it here on YouTube because it has community guidelines but a certain topic that is
interesting.
Not very, but you just had more research into it, and I was like, oh wow. And then there was another. Well, we're not going to. It's for YouTube community guidelines.
We're going to talk about that afterwards.
Like fighting for life and fighting for babies. You were pro-life as well, which is super important.
You might have different levels of passion for a particular topic, but just make sure that you're united on
principle.
The principle
Has
of
to
it.
be.
Exactly. And
Has
so
to
like
be.
another thing we talked about is finances and like our expectations for like
Budget.
all of that.
We talked about our plans to raise our children.
How we would raise our kids.
Where we'd be taking them to church. What would be important about the church we went to.
Yeah.
How we do daily Bible studies. How we would do punishment. You got to talk about these things.
And so like not only do you want to talk about like your future and your goals and your expectations, but another thing that is crucial to talk about that I think many couples forget to talk about is their past, their trauma, the things they've overcome, the issues that they've gone through, the arguments, the friendships that didn't work out, the relationships that didn't work out. Like talk about those things, because there's a lot that you can learn from those experiences about somebody.
And it's awfully important. And not that you have to air out your entire list on the first date. Okay. You can take things step by step. However, especially before you get engaged, especially as things progress, your person that you're dating should truly know your history. They should truly know what you've been through.
They should know not just your character, but what has shaped your character.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of them judging you or what they're going to think of you, because actually that's their responsibility. In a relationship, you are fully giving yourself. This is the person you're going to marry. So you don't really have an option of hiding things anymore. I hate to break it to you, but they're going to find out whether you tell them or not. The truth always comes out.
The longer you're married, the less you can hide.
And if you don't believe me, just wait until you're sleeping next to a person at night and for the rest of your life. You'll see. And so it's best to get it all out at the start.
And of course, like there might be some things you forget to talk about. Like there are some things I'm like, Gabe, did I ever tell you the story about this?
Right.
We're not talking about those things. We're just talking about the big moments, the big milestones, and the valleys of your life. Those are important things to talk about. And trust me, that will actually build your relationship. Like that will actually get you guys closer with one another.
Hands down.
In a way that's not just physical intimacy. Because a lot of people go straight to hugging and kissing and holding hands and all of this stuff. And like, that's not what it's about. Like you are becoming united, like heart to heart, and like getting to know who's on the inside of this exterior. And
people are like, oh, you got to test a car before you buy it. That's such a joke. You're not a car. You're not an item. The physical realm is 1/1000th of what you're about to experience in marriage. It is so nowhere near the reality. Yeah. And I think people just have like their standards for a relationship are all just physical. And then you ask them about spiritual. You ask them about what they want to do in life. You ask them about the plans, the purposes, and the pursuits. And it's nowhere near their physical goals. And it's like, guys, you seek God's kingdom first. Yeah. That means the spouse that you're looking for needs to be with you spiritually first. And of course, you got to be attracted to them. But again, the attraction comes and goes. I'm going to be honest. It's there one day. And of course it's always there.
I'm like, what are you saying?
No, let me be clear. See, this is what happens. We don't feel attracted to one another when we highly disagree on where we're going, or if I leave out all my clothes and my toothbrush on the sink, you're not attracted to me. See, I'm getting real now, right? Like you could be attracted to someone until you fully get to know them, and then maybe it might not be there.
Exactly, because you're going to see like the feelings, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
But what stays is the love.
Exactly.
And what stays is the covenant, the commitment. Yeah. And to get to that commitment, you've got to address the red flags early on. And we talked about those things. We talked about the importance of individually having a relationship with the Lord, individually reading our Bibles, individually praying in the Spirit, individually listening to sermons. We talked about that.
Yeah. And not only did we talk about it, we practiced that. Like before we started dating, we were Christians. We were reading our Bibles. We were going to church. We were serving the Lord. And that's really important. You don't want to date somebody and try to missionary date them and tell them about Jesus and get them saved, because you want to be united. You don't want them to just follow Jesus because you follow Jesus and then you find out that they actually never really believed in it at all. Like
faith can't just be something you claim verbally. It needs to be a life lived. We agreed divorce was not an option. If there's people watching this video, maybe that you've been divorced before, there's no shame or guilt.
Yeah, we're not judging you.
There are valid biblical reasons for divorce. However, in marriage, you are committing to not divorcing the person. And you also shouldn't be planning your divorce as you get married either. Right. People write up these prenups and that's another topic though. But we agreed, we were committed like with our life.
And it gave us peace to make that decision because we did all of these things that we're talking about. You know, exactly. Like if we didn't do these things, then maybe I would be like, okay, I might divorce. You know what I'm saying? But no. And in my own past, I've witnessed a lot of divorce and just how it tears apart families, and it's just really hard. It's not easy on anyone, and I think that's something we can all agree on. And so no one I don't think anyone really wants a divorce at the end of the day, but they get in this situation where maybe they feel like they have no other option. And obviously we both agree, like, for biblical reasons, we understand people getting divorced, but we also made the decision on our own each, like, we're not going to do those things.
And that's why dating is so important, because every ounce that you can invest in the dating process saves yourself from the divorce process.
Yeah.
I think people really just see marriages. We see love stories on TV. We see Instagram couples that we love, or YouTube, we compare ourselves to them, and we think the world of them, and then we think the world of marriage, and we just want to get married. You need to get yourself ready for marriage first. You need to understand the weight of marriage before you throw yourself at this.
Because it's so much more than romance.
So much.
It's so much more.
So much more. And we set boundaries with family and in-laws.
And that is so important.
You got to get real.
No, you need to hear this right now, because there are so many marriages that have issues with in-laws, and you don't realize it until you're married. And we've read about studies on this, like families who are enmeshed, families who are overbearing, and like just all of this stuff. You need to talk about this now.
Jesus said clearly, a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they two will become one flesh. He didn't say they four will become one flesh.
Right.
He didn't say they
eight or whatever
will become one
How
flesh.
many?
No, he said they
Six.
two.
It would be six, I guess.
He said they too will become one flesh. And that's the truth most families struggle with, especially certain cultures. There's certain mothers that get very involved, certain fathers that get very involved, certain aunties and uncles. And guys, at the end of the day, you're forming your own family.
If they're mistreating your spouse or saying like
disrespectful
things, like
set boundaries with them.
At the end of the day, of course, yes, we are called to honor our father and mother. And that's
100%.
And that's what you should be doing. Yes. But like, if your father and mother are being abusive towards you or your spouse, like, maybe some boundaries need to be checked. You know what I'm saying? Like
100%. And to honor your father and mother doesn't mean you obey them. You're not a child.
Yeah.
The Bible says children obey your parents.
Right.
But it says honor your parents as you become an adult. If you really don't think you can change your spouse, you especially are not going to change your in-laws.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Definitely not going to change. So just keep that in mind. If you have any hopes for your spouse's family, I would caution you against. Now, of course, pray for them, bless them. You believe God for them. However, you don't put them where God should be in your life.
Yeah. And realize the person that you are marrying or that you are dating, like, their family will become your family. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be involved in every crevice of your life and your marriage. It probably shouldn't be that way, but like, you are inheriting that. And so consider that too.
And honestly, after watching this podcast, a lot of you have even more questions and you feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg. That's exactly why we actually wrote this amazing guide for you. What is it called?
The Guide to Christian Dating. And so you can check it out in the link in the description of this video. Yes. We know it's going to bless you. It goes in depth on a lot of these different things. We talk about our own experiences, and I know that you will find your story in the pages of what we've written.
Click the link down in the description below and donate any amount to get the mini book right in your hands today.